College's 7 meters Ryan Michalesko, staff photographer Baylor Bears wide receiver Tyquan Thornton, 81, celebrates a touchdown during the first half of a matchup between Baylor and Texas Tech on Saturday, in November 24, 2018 edit. Ryan Michalesko, The Dallas Morning News by Selby Lopez, staff writer at Lopez. Selby 31. With Baylor's annual green and gold spring football game approaching on Saturday, fans will get their first look at which up-and-comers could be starring for the Bears this fall. Recently, the news caught up with KCEN sports reporter and anchor Jessica Morrey, who is entering her 5th season covering Baylor football, to discuss players to keep an eye on during the Bears spring game. Here are some of the highlights. Which players should Baylor fans keep an eye on during the spring game? Morrey, obviously, Charlie Brewer. He's going to come in and he's got so much experience already as a junior to lead this team, and I think his personality is growing. He'll be one of those players that people kind of gravitate toward and want to cheer for or are interested in what he has to say. He's definitely someone you'll want to keep your eye on for sure. Related, making the Heisman case for and against Baylor quarterback Charlie Brewer. Defensively, I think James Lynch is just an unbelievable defensive end for Baylor out of Round Rock. He was great last season and he's obviously just going to get even better, and he's young. And then Clay Johnston at linebacker, also another guy that they're going to watch on defense. Offensively, I think they've got a lot of question marks when it comes to a lot of players in skill positions. Receiver-wise, Chris Platt had surgery. He's going to be back and he's going to be someone that can hopefully have a more productive year this season than he did last year, and then same with Denzel Mims. There's a few question marks offensively as to who will be the big star because they don't have a Jalen Hurd, who is getting a lot of attention. To fill that role is going to be hard. But yeah, Charlie is obviously a big name and I think he's got a chance to be really successful, and I think this year will be his first year where he's not competing with a grad transfer for a starting job. Hopefully, we don't run into any of that switching off every series sort of deal. What does the running back depth chart look like going into next season? Could Craig "Squirrel" Williams see more playing time? Morrey, obviously, the fans want to see him play. I think he's going to be a favorite for sure. I think the running game is hard because of the fact that the offensive line has been fairly questionable. They need to be able to protect more, and once they do that, it will obviously open up the run game. There really weren't a lot of deep balls thrown last year, successful deep balls. So I think once the passing game opens up, it obviously opens up the running game, and they can do a little bit more with that, which is obviously what Matt Rhule wants to do because he loves that pro-style offense. He wants to be able to run the ball a lot more than throwing the ball deep. There's a lot of question marks with the running game and it didn't have a ton of success. So I think if you can get Craig Williams, if you get Squirrel out there, that's obviously what people are going to want to see. He's fast, so talented. He's one of those players that fans can rally around. I don't know how much playing time he'll see because John Lovett came alive toward the end of the season and played really well, and I think I would believe that he's being talked about as being the starter with Jermichael Hasty. What receivers could step up with Denzel Mims to fill the void left by Jalen Hurd? Morrey, Chris Platt, he should come back from surgery. He has all the experience and he's got the speed, and hopefully he can get out there and make some catches. Denzel Mims was very good last year, but also kind of spotty. He was hit or miss. He would make those huge catches but then he would drop balls that he should have caught. He really wasn't super consistent. If he could make those crazy good catches, or if he could make the average catches on a consistent basis in a game, I think that's going to be huge for them. Dropped balls were kind of a problem, so I think those two, and then there are younger guys I would like to see come up. RJ Sneed. Some of these guys that got injured or were kind of forgotten about because they didn't see a lot of playing time. I think I like RJ Sneed a lot. I think he's really talented from just getting to watch him. The little we saw of Jared Atkinson, also talented. He got to play a little bit, but not as much as I'm sure he would have liked. We could see him get out there. Baylor position outlooks for 2019. Can Denzel Mims re-emerge as the top receiving target for QB Charlie Brewer? They just have so much talent at wide receiver that's just young. So it's just interesting to see who's going to step up and come out there. I think once one of the receivers has a good game, one of these guys that we don't get to see that often, he'll be in the lineup more often and we'll get to hear from him more, but I know Tyquan Thornton played unbelievable last season. I think he's going to be the one that's the number 2 guy besides Mims. Him and Platt. I think Tyquan Thornton is going to be one of the guys that he played so much last season, and he has some good footwork, makes good catches and helped steal some games, and I think that's going to be key coming in with that experience. I think he's going to be someone fans are definitely going to want to watch. Baylor recruited 7 defensive linemen in this class to account for the losses of Ira Lewis and Greg Roberts. What do you think about how the depth chart is looking up front? Morrey, obviously they have some veterans coming back on the line like James Lynch and those guys, but they need to be able to force sacks. Every year I always talk to Phil Snow, defensive coordinator, and I'm like, what's your goal for the defense? And he's like, 40 sacks, and they can't get to that. I don't even know how close they've been able to get to that. Can't remember how many sacks they had this past season, but I know it wasn't 40. It hasn't been 40 since Phil Snow got here, so I know he's obviously trying to fix that. I think for the guys that are going to step up that are new, he brought so many of them in and so many are early enrollees, so I think that's going to be helpful to them. Being able to come in and get some playing time early in the spring is always important. TJ Franklin coming in from Temple, covered him in high school. This kid is huge. I saw him in spring practice the other day and he somehow got even bigger, but I'm also 5 feet tall. He's a guy that nobody really recruited out of Temple High School, and the first offer he got was from Baylor, and I remember thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. I covered him in high school a lot and I didn't really know him, and I thought, that's interesting. They offered him as a junior. I was like, okay, I didn't really see him play a lot. I don't recognize that name, and I was a little confused. I went over and I talked to their head coach and they were like, yeah, he's great. He hasn't gotten a lot of playing time this year, but as a senior, he will. As a senior, he completely dominated and was a force on the line for Temple, forcing turnovers, strip sacks, everything. He was all over the place. He's going to be someone that I think could see some playing time on the defensive line, and I think that's going to be huge if he can have that success. What does the quarterback depth look like behind Charlie Brewer, with Rule adding 3 4-star quarterbacks in the last 2 recruiting classes? Morrey, I would like to see more of them. I think the spring game's going to be a great chance because Charlie will probably only play 1 or 2 series, and then we'll get to see Jerry Bohannon and some of those guys. I think that's going to be really key this season because last year we didn't get to see him at all. I think Jerry Bohannon played maybe 1 play, so it'll be interesting to see this season. We can't judge too much from a spring game. You want to believe for Charlie's sake that he's the guy and the faith is in him going forward, but you never know. It's always a competition out there. Matt Rule always says it's a competition. The best player in practice gets to play on Saturday, so that's always interesting to see what can happen there, but you never know. I don't foresee, looking at the depth chart, seeing an exact name to back up Brewer. I foresee an or after Charlie. I think that's going to be an or position, probably. Knowing how the depth chart usually works with Rule, it's not normally set like that. He doesn't like depth chart. How has Matt Rule changed the culture at Baylor? Morrey, the culture on the team, everyone has bought in. And I think that bowl win really kind of proved something. I think it was like, okay, you make it to the bowl, that's great, then you win the bowl and that's even better, and that shows that he's for real and that he really can turn programs around. I'm sure if they would have won 5 games, maybe 4, I think people would have been like, oh wow. How can we buy into this? But I think now with the bowl win, it really just solidified that he is the guy that can come in and change things and turn things around and get teams to where they want to be and get players to where they want to be. What happened when you sat Matt Rule at a red light while it was still uncertain whether he would return to Baylor or accept a job with the New York Jets? Morrey, I pulled up on him right at a red light. I was on Baylor's campus and I was like, oh, hey, and he was like, hey Jessica, looks like I'm still in Waco. I was like, yeah? Are you going to leave? He was like, I'm still in Waco, and I was like, okay. Then as soon as I tweeted it, everyone came at me, SIDS, because I had worded it as if he had spoke with me, not like it was by chance, so I just had to clean it up a little bit just to keep people off my back a little bit. I should be more specific, I spoke with Matt Rule when I saw him driving home from work. I just happened to pull up next to him at a stoplight in Waco. Jessica Morrey, at Jessica Morrey, January 10, 2019. But yeah, we coined it drive-by journalism. It was by chance that I happened to catch him and he and I have a good relationship. It was surprising that he rolled down the window and made a joke. I was happy that he decided to stay. I don't think I could have handled the whole other coaching search because that's so stressful.